So in front of me, I have my Moroccan fish, which is one of my staples. So I'm going to go through the different ingredients, okay? First of all, a shout out to my favorite vineyard in Florence that sent this to me, Sant'Appiano, okay? Amazing olive oils, glazes. Then I have a bunch of spices. This whole dish is about the spices. It's very spice heavy. Don't think you're putting too much. That's what the dish calls for. I love Pereg. I keep Kosher Kitchen, so they're my favorite spice brand actually, but I especially love them because, you know, for this, you're doing a lot of tablespoons of each one, and you can dip the whole entire spoon in the opening of the spices, and it makes it very easy to cook. So I have sweet paprika, hot spicy paprika, cumin, very key ingredient, chili, and I have consomme, I have parsley, cilantro, fresh peppers, Roma tomatoes, salmon cut into 1-inch cubes, fresh crushed garlic, and tomato paste, okay? Am I missing anything? I don't think so. No, I am not. I'd say for each pound of fish, you should do 4 or 5 small Roma tomatoes and 2 full peppers. I would be very, very careful with how much cayenne pepper you put in. So I do a double recipe all the time because I cook for massive amounts of people. So I put 6 tablespoons of each of the cumin, sweet paprika, and hot paprika, but I'd say I put like a 1/4 teaspoon of the cayenne, and that's still gonna put your mouth on fire. I use a small jar of tomato paste. What's not shown in this picture is that you're gonna put water in with the dish, and I'll start showing you the preparation of it. And you're also actually gonna put an equal quantity of the consomme, so 6 tablespoons for me, 3 if you're doing a normal size recipe. The amount of garlic that you put is up to you. I use both whole cloves and crushed garlic in the recipe. If you want to lower the quantity of garlic, that's up to you. Then I put parsley and cilantro as the herbs, and obviously olive oil, the peppers, and I'm gonna get into, oh, and salt. Don't forget the salt. The consomme is not salty enough to salt the entire dish, and I'm going to get into how you prepare it now. First, you're going to chop your vegetables so that once you get everything started, you're like ready to go. You're going to take your peppers and you're gonna slice them into thin strips, I'd say a 1/4 inch thick. You're gonna take your tomatoes and cut them a little larger. They're gonna be about, you'll chop this tomato into about 6 pieces. You're gonna take your parsley and cilantro off the vine, start chopping it a bit. I don't do too finely chopped for this recipe. I like a coarse chop. When I go to the butcher or the fish store, I ask them to prepare the protein for me. So I ask them to take the skin off. Okay, this is skinless salmon fillets. And if they're not too busy, I ask them to cut it into 1.5 inch pieces of salmon. And then you'll open the tomato paste, just basically prep everything. So the reason I say start with the veggies first is because you can start prepping the spice mix while the veggies are cooking over a medium-high heat with some olive oil as well as water to create steam with a covered saucepan. I use a big pot because, again, quantity, but you can use, a big saute pan if you're making a smaller quantity. And the peppers I actually throw in before I put the tomatoes because they take a long time to cook. If you put the tomatoes in at the same time, the tomatoes are gonna completely disintegrate into a sauce. So chop the peppers first, throw them onto the stove top, medium-high heat with olive oil, a little bit of water. I'd say put like about a 1/4 cup, 1/2 cup, depends on how big of a portion you're making, and let it sit. You're gonna let that cook for about, honestly, at least 15 to 20 minutes. And once they start getting kind of soft, then you're gonna throw the tomatoes in, and you're gonna add more water and a drop more olive oil once you throw the tomatoes in. At this point, you can put in your whole cloves of garlic, as well as your crushed garlic, and the tomato paste, and your salt. Salt is to taste. I'd say for this recipe, I'm probably putting about a teaspoon, so if you're having it, but to taste. And you'll be able to taste the sauce after if you need to add more salt. While that's cooking, you're going to create your spice mix. You're going to measure, for a normal sized portion, 3 tablespoons of the consomme, 3 tablespoons of the cumin, 3 tablespoons of each of the paprikas. Very little cayenne, guys. Your mouth will be on fire. And you're going to mix that all together in a bowl. Then you're gonna cover the mixture in a combination of olive oil and water until you have a very thick paste. Once you see that the vegetables are starting to soften, you're going to throw that spice mix in, it's now like a paste, into your concoction on the stovetop. And then you're gonna keep cooking that. Top is gonna be covered until your peppers should be completely soft. No crunch at all whatsoever. You're adding as much water to the mixture as the consistency of what you want the sauce to be, which is kind of like a thick sauce. It's almost like a stew. And once you have that consistency and it's boiling and the veggies are soft, you're then going to throw the fish in for no more than 6 to 8 minutes. First of all, they're small pieces, so they cook fast, and the sauce is now very hot because it's been cooking for a long time. There's nothing worse than dry, overcooked fish. Okay, that's why my food is good, because I cook it right. And that's a skill that you will develop over time. Now, about 4 minutes, and this is all, these numbers exist for a reason. It's because you don't want the various things undercooked or overcooked. Halfway through the salmon cooking, you're gonna throw in your herbs so that they don't cook too much and wilt too much, and then you're gonna let it cook for a few more minutes, take it off the stove. You should be able to put your fork through the salmon, but just barely, because remember, it's going to keep cooking. I always immediately make myself a plate the second it comes off of that stovetop because it is so freaking good. Use bread to absorb the sauce. It's probably the best part. And what's great is that it's good the next day and the next day and the next day. It's actually also an excellent protein appetizer. So if you don't want to make too much meat or too much chicken, your guests start getting full after the first course.